Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof.
Hey.
Oh, you guys are kind of faded out there. I felt like your confidence waned a little bit.
I'm just happy.
Because
good day to be here.
if we did kind of keep going, we'd have to commit to the whole.
It's true.
Then clap.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the claps. I was
waiting for you to clap along.
I was just going to sit back and enjoy it. You guys were...
But he's not happy because I didn't hear him clap along.
You seem to both just be so happy and bring so much energy to it. I just didn't want to take away from that. It was a special moment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. How's everyone doing today? Doing good?
Doing good.
The weather's getting colder.
Yeah.
The sun's getting darker. Not really, but I just noticed that driving the kids to school today, it was a lot darker than it was even the day before. And I mean, partially the clouds, but also it's that time of year.
Yes, it is.
Even going to be more so in a few days here.
Yeah. We might talk about that in the headlines.
Oh,
we should.
Tease.
Wow.
Tease
Way
at
to
the old
tease it,
daylight
Alex.
savings
I did it.
time. You did it. Maybe not intentionally. Per the usual, we like to start these episodes off with a little voicemail. Do we got one this week?
We have one this week.
All right.
And here it is.
Great.
Oh, no, there it's not. So we had a technical difficulty. I tested this earlier and it was connected, but I think we restarted our
The
audio
soundboard. That happens
console.
sometimes. You know what you could do? You could just hold it right up to your put on
Yeah, I
speaker and
could've
hold it
done
up
that.
to your microphone. Let's do it the old school way.
Old school.
Hey, Uncomfortable Podcast.
Oh, it's back.
I have some banter for y'all to banter about. Would you fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Okay.
That is my question for y'all. I hope that you guys have a great day. Bye.
100% my answer is I would fight one horse-sized duck. I'm not fighting 100 of anything. Like if there's 100 ants, I'm running. You know?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to fight. I mean, yeah, a horse, those things can kick, they can whip, they can neigh, they can do all of those.
A horse-sized duck, though, I'm just trying to think of
That's a big beak, you know?
the build of that. Yeah, the beak, the big
That thing stomps
flappy
on
feet.
you with its little webbed feet. You're suffocating.
Yes, it's true, but I like my chances.
The feathers could smother you.
I still like my chances.
Are the duck-sized horses as strong as a horse would be? Like, would they be able to kick you as much? Or are they're like weaker, right?
Yeah,
They're small.
I'm assuming they're weaker. Like, they're kickable.
And are we?
Ooh, I can't.
You just said you'd kick a baby horse. I think is what you just said.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking fight, like how I would fight them.
Yeah.
What would you, so is that what you're going with? You're going to fight the
What? Yeah, I don't know.
the
We're
duck-sized
thinking-
horses. How are you gonna win this battle?
I'd like to have like one of those little electric things, not a taser, but what's
No, you don't get that.
it's
It's just
full
you.
on
Like
full
UV.
body?
Like a shock
You're
stick
just-
thing.
Yeah.
Just walk out of the house one day trying to get to your car, and all
There's
of a
a-
sudden,
I feel like
100
that would be
horses.
very creepy. Like that's 200 eyes.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What does that have to do with
I don't
anything?
know, that's a lot of like looking at you.
Are they cross-eyed horses? You just made like a cross-eyed look, and I don't know. Yeah, that's
Okay.
tough. It's hand to beak contact.
Is it like a fight
combat?
to the death?
Like you can't.
You
You,
know
have a
what I mean?
weapon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a fight to the death. We didn't. I guess we can
Like
do
subdue,
whatever.
maybe to subdue it if you're being attacked. So what would you use on a horse-sized duck? That's
I would
large.
for sure take them down. Down like
I know. I don't know.
He's
Is
thinking down like feathers.
feathers.
Oh,
He's going complete
okay.
dad
Yeah,
joke mode.
All right. Got it.
I just think, I like my chances against one thing rather than like just being tumbled by a horse. I've just seen it. There's power in numbers, so I think I like my chances against one of these ducks that's horse size, though it is giant.
That is big, and I think I'm going to go with the 100 horses just because you could jump up on something,
and they can't
and a
climb.
duck can fly.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
little horses are.
Those little teeny teeth that duck have. I don't know how big.
I
they
feel like
get.
I could get the garden hose out and just start spraying those horses away. Those little horses that be coming at me and then just spray them down. The horses like getting sprayed with water.
Yeah, probably. I think so.
Oh, they like it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's a
think
bad
they
idea
like
then.
What would you,
Yeah.
listener, what would you rather battle against if you had to? Tell us how you would get it done, how you'd suggest for us to get it done.
We'd love to hear it. Uh-huh.
And if you have more voicemails or banter or anything that you'd love us to talk about, that is, whether it's, silly and that's kind of fun to talk about, or something serious to talk about, or you have a question for us, you can call that number anytime.
What's that
We will
number?
answer.
Literally anytime.
What's that number, Alex?
402 885 9930. Anytime you can leave a voicemail. And if you leave a voicemail and you're like, oh, I got stage fright or whatever happened, you just you just call back, leave another one, and we won't play the first one and just.
Unless it's really funny.
And
we want
hopefully
to
by
share.
now people know we love all the questions.
Yeah.
We'll answer.
We'll answer your duck-sized questions
we
and your
will.
horse-sized questions.
And you can text message that number as well. So if you're like, my voice isn't working today,
scared.
you can text it and we will read it for you. So
There you go. All
right. Looking forward.
All of those burning questions have been answered for this week. Up next, we've got headlines. All right, our first headline comes from the New York Times, and it says, "Is it better to brush your teeth before breakfast or after?" It's a hotly debated question in dentistry. So this lays it out, and it's one of those things where I feel like this article reflects our podcast pretty well, because sometimes we set out to answer question and then we get to the end of the episode and go, you know what? We don't have a definitive answer, it depends. And in reading this article, the conclusion that they came to was ultimately the decision boils down to what works for you.
What works in your schedule?
Because the science is sparse and there is no consensus in the literature.
So you can kind of debate
one.
it.
Yeah, that was one doctor. The other doctor also agreed and said there is no proof either way. She said, so all of the arguments are largely theoretical. It's highly debated, and it ultimately may not make a significant clinical difference.
how do you guys make the decision then?
Oh,
So it's obviously a preference thing.
Yeah, I personally am always before breakfast. I mean, if on days that I actually eat breakfast, but I just because it's like part of your routine. Like I get up, get ready, you brush your teeth. So I don't know. I'm not gonna like get ready. I mean, I guess there are Saturdays, those lazy Saturdays where you kind of make it from bed to the couch and you haven't like really done much.
there's
and
no
then
judgment.
those days, those
all
are
right.
all up in the air. I might brush my teeth after breakfast, like before lunch, but that's just because I didn't make it to the bathroom yet to do the daily routine. So there's always anomalies out there. But I mean, I could go on, but I'm sure no one else wants to hear about my hygiene regimen. How about you guys?
Sounds like
How
a
do you
good one.
choose?
I do after.
After
I feel like it's
A
like
post breakfast brushing.
yes, but I
you're
feel
getting
like,
all the egg out of your
Yeah.
teeth and everything.
I
Yeah.
feel like I get also confused about brushing teeth because it's like if I use a white strip, do you brush before or after? Like there's lots of questions around brushing your teeth. Or when you floss, do you floss first then brush, or do you brush first then floss? I mean, I just
100% floss first.
all the things.
But I don't white strip it, but makes
Probably
sense.
when you
good.
say
Probably
100% floss first, is that like because you're going to brush away the debris after the flossing? Is that kind of the thought?
That's my thought.
do you guys
Yeah.
brush your tongues?
I do. Yeah.
Same.
I have actually a tongue scraper,
Same.
and it's kind of
I'm
nasty.
also
My
a bad
toothbrush
yeah, I
has like a
agree.
little rough
Yeah.
thing on the back
Use it.
side that I kind of.
Mine is
That's what
I'm
it's
like
for.
it's like a U kind
Yeah.
of shaped
Yep.
tongue scraper.
Yep. It's been a while since my gag reflexes.
And that was hitting it. You thinking about
Even
scraping
like,
that
yeah,
tongue.
It's hard for me to do it, but it's good to do it.
So there you go. Just what?
If you're-
Really, the moral of the
yeah.
story is just brush your teeth.
Brush those teeth.
Brush your
Brushy brush, brushy
teeth.
brush. Elmo?
for all the
Right.
time that you
Yeah.
need to brush your teeth.
Really.
All right. Well,
All right. So there's a theme in this episode, and that's the New York Times. They've provided us with both
wow.
headlines
Thank
this week.
you.
The next headline is one we hinted at the top of the show. It says, "How to fall back without missing a beat. Earlier mornings and shorter evening light can be a tough adjustment, but there are ways to prepare for the end of daylight saving." Now, am I correct in thinking that maybe we would end this year? Like this might be the last
I feel like this is
time?
like
It comes
been
up a lot,
long-coming
but I thought
debate.
it was like actually going, I don't know, to Congress or something like that, right?
That's what this article says too. And then I've seen other news sources outside of New York Times saying that this is potentially coming to an end
The
eventually.
final countdown.
Yeah,
Which is weird because I feel like there's big staples,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just something we've grown up with, and so it's weird that it would change. And our kids, there's just changes where our kids will grow up potentially not
knowing.
having to do that, or parent through how fun falling back and springing ahead is.
I mean,
for
I always
bedtimes.
like gaining the hour, but I always hate losing the hour. So, it's- are there? Do you find your habits or routines change as it's darker earlier? I mean, I think when you're a kid, you're not like going outside to play as much or whatever, but just as an adult, because I think one thing in this article it talks about try to avoid just falling into those kind of comfort habits of like binging Netflix and other sedentary behaviors. Like it's one thing I said here that I thought was interesting is it was better to create rather than consume when it's dark. So like they suggested doing a family puppet show, which to me, that's a funny suggestion because that would just never happen in my house. But
I don't think so.
I mean, are there
Not
any
even
other
sock
ideas?
puppets or nothing.
No, I mean, maybe it's for the moment. Like
Yeah.
I'm binging Netflix and I pull my sock off, put it on my hand, and just
You're like, I forgot. I shouldn't be
Lord.
doing this.
I'm gonna create
It's
now.
gonna be better for me to take off my sock and do a puppet show right now.
I think more it's like to me the gist of the article is like think about it before you're actually in the habit of maybe you get in the habit of binging Netflix or whatever your sedentary thing is. What are you going to do to kind of keep yourself active? I know for me, when it gets darker and I'm still working, that like mentally messes with me. So I have
Yeah.
to prepare like, okay, it's going to be dark, but it's only 6:00.
Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest part for me, I think, is my kids because right now, I mean, especially in the winter in general, like every day when I get home, they're playing outside with the neighbors, they're doing all that kind of stuff. And usually, by the time it's getting dark, we don't want them out there as much. It's getting colder. And basically dark time is pretty much, hey, come in, get ready for bedtime. And now you've got a couple hours before that between the two. And so it'll probably mostly just mean playing at the neighbor's house or more neighbors in my house and just a lot more noise. I mean, the nice thing about outside when they're playing is that they can be out there and scream and all that kind of stuff. And I, even if I'm outside with them shooting hoops with my son or whatever, that noise isn't quite as piercing to my soul. But there's definitely moments where like I'm upstairs and the kids are downstairs or whatever. And, the shrieks.
You're like, I can't think
The
straight.
shrieks sometimes are like just piercing to me, and it's like not even like something happened, but like someone's hurt, but it's just like we just scream for whatever reason.
Totally.
And that's part of being a kid. And so that's probably where the most of the time comes in. But we don't let our kid it's not like we're just going to start watching TV at 5 because it's dark all of a sudden. That's not really.
It's a
an
wild
option.
card for me starting bedtime. So this is my first year. I'm sitting here realizing that now my kids can tell time.
Yeah.
Because before, when it gets darker, even if it's 6:00, I'm like, hey, it's dark. Like, time to move for bed towards bedtime. Because if it's 6:00, it's really 7 as they're like morphing into it. And now, if I'm like, oh, look, it's dark outside. It's getting close to bedtime. And they're like, Mom, it's only 6:15.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder
have
if
to
no one
rework that.
actually knew that this happened. Like,
Yeah.
would it actually affect us as much as
What do we know?
we
Yeah.
realize? I mean, obviously, you would notice it's darker earlier, but it's already becoming that. Like this week,
Yeah.
I've noticed, like you said earlier, Eric. Like
Yeah.
I've noticed that a lot more. So, like, if we didn't like promote it, if no one said anything, if all of our clocks automatically changed, would we probably even notice like that 1 hour?
Yeah.
I would guess not a ton.
No. You might feel a little more rested and just not know why.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I just realized I unplugged my headphones. I was like, oh, I can't hear anything, but that's all right.
A lot of technical difficulties.
A lot
today.
of
We're
technical.
struggling.
That's another theme of this episode. I also think it's interesting too how, I mean, I think the darker days just lend themselves to feelings of lethargicness, depression. But I don't know. It's just all that stuff is tied together, like your habits. Like, oh, it's getting closer to Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's like the types of foods you eat are different. The types of activities you do are different. And I just wonder, like, the correlation there. Do you notice that happening a lot? Like, does it make you crave other stuff that you wouldn't crave throughout the year, or is it? Do you not notice that?
I mean, I have probably gone a couple months without having like candy. And this week, I just have to confess, I struggled. Okay, there was so much candy in my house, and it's just so easy. Like I typically would have an M&M machine. I moved it out of my office to the podcast studio, and I could like just sit there all day, not have any, and I've got candy in my office
just munching away.
But
no, he's saying he could avoid it
because of like.
But now he can't.
Yeah, it's just this week.
Yeah.
What's your weakness?
My weakness, I don't even know what they're called. They're these little straws. Like they're like
sour straws?
No, not those sour straws. They're like I'll have to tell you. I'll have to do some Google research.
Okay, we need to follow back around with this because I feel like this lens is going to a deeper conversation because I also am seeing a lot of the stuff like clinically in my office, but we don't have time. But we need to come
like
back
food
around.
issues. Or
I just
sweet
think
tart
like
ropes.
Sweet
tart ropes is what they are.
I don't
And
know. I
they're
just feel like there's a lot packed around this time of year, things coming up. Probably need to keep talking about.
Yeah, well, there's consistency of like Halloween, so then you've kind of got the candy and the so literally every year I have to be like try to be more intentional because then it's like you've got Thanksgiving and that's just like go gorge yourself kind of excuse day, and then you lead into Christmas where everything's kind of. I mean, the schedule gets more messed up, at least in my family. You've got holiday parties. You've got all of these different things. And so that like October 31st to December 31st, 2-month kind of window is like, okay, it's easier for me to be disciplined the other 10 months. And then this, and probably some of that is, I would guess, the darkness. I mean, there's just so much psychological stuff that probably goes into it. Stress with family. And, being at, between my family and Aaron's family, just like being at more places and just all of those kind of things happen around this time of year.
Places to go.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think you kind of, and it's a weird balance because it's like, you can't, at some point during the holidays, you kind of go, oh, well, maybe I should let myself indulge a little more. Like I shouldn't just deprive myself, but also how do you not just totally I know for me, like I'll just like fall into that habit and go, okay, well, I'm eating bad stuff. I might as well just always eat bad stuff forever now.
I wonder if that's like, that's partly why there's so much pressure on the New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
To kind of like the wheels have fallen off. Okay.
Let's prepare.
How do we get Alex back on track?
Yeah, for sure.
January 1st.
Throw all the candy out. All right. That does it for headlines. Up next, we are going to be talking about Twitter. Twitter has been in the headlines a lot lately because of Elon Musk's purchase of the company. But we're going to be talking about the relevancy of Twitter and the purchase by Elon Musk and a few other things. So stay tuned for that. Is Twitter still relevant? That's the question today that we are asking ourselves, the world, everyone. I'm always fascinated when I ask people about Twitter, and I say the majority of the time their answer is no. Or I've had responses like, there's just like certain people they follow on Twitter, and maybe the former president Donald Trump or Elon Musk or other personalities, Kanye West, and they're like, oh, I just go to Twitter to follow this person, and that's it. Do you guys use Twitter? That's, I guess, really the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I use Twitter. And I think partly why maybe that people are asking this too is not just about like this platform, and we'll get into that I think later, but like who Elon Musk is, the idea of Amazon, like so much of the ecosystem, and you know that goes into what this new purchase means of him purchasing Twitter, and what that means for free speech and so many other things that are just a part of it. So there's so many people I think that don't even ever use Twitter but are interested in this conversation because they're like, what's gonna happen? And obviously politics have used any kind of social media for so many different kind of things, for platforming themselves or getting messages out. And so I think that's where like the rubber meets the road, whether someone's tweeted or not tweeted. It's definitely that place for me, especially. I'm more of like, I would say, a stalker on Twitter. Like I'm not an active. I usually define that like if you're not like an active user, like adding to the conversation a lot, but you're just following people, mostly just to hear things and get news and so on and so forth. That's typically, you know, my Twitter usage. I'll go on binges, you know, during Husker games or whatever to share things, but
mean tweet.
Or if I'm like in a book or whatever,
Rant.
there's times where I'll share maybe some more of those thoughts from a book or whatever. But mostly that's my Twitter usage.
I feel like I'm looking at my Twitter account and I feel like I've let whoever follows me down, because the last thing I retweeted was Santa Claus on December 24th.
The Santa Claus?
Yes. And then a couple of CrossFit things. So I have dropped the ball. I feel like there's so many different social media platforms I had to choose. And so I feel like my Twitter game is a little weak right now. But
Yeah.
I do feel like using Twitter, it's to follow celebrities, because I feel like that's like the closest connection you have to, like if a celebrity is going to communicate or you're
Yeah.
going to find something out, it's through that. So
Yeah, I was on Twitter pretty early, and I just loved the interactions that would happen on that, whether that was like with friends. You just almost have like public text threads that would just break out on Twitter. And, you know, usually it was in like coming from a place of fun, and maybe you'd have like lighthearted arguments or things like that just felt like, oh, okay, the whole world's watching, even though probably only two people are actually reading this interaction. And then those moments when you get retweeted by a celebrity or
Tweeted
responded
at.
to by
Or they
or
like
it or something.
Acknowledged.
Yeah, and you feel really special, which is kind of vain, but it still happened. But
blocked.
Or blocked, yeah, depending on what you say. I mean, Twitter was legitimately, I'd say before TikTok, it was my number one platform. I would use it every day, mostly. And I probably have now slowly moved to TikTok just because TikTok tends to be that, I don't know, it's a real dopamine accelerator in probably a negative way in some ways, because you can just sit there and scroll these.
Dopamine dump after dopamine dump.
Yeah, just right
That
in
is
there.
true.
Yeah, you just keep scrolling.
go and go.
And you get these little, 30 to 90 second things that just engage you over and over again. So, but yeah, Twitter is definitely one of my favorites. And so we talked a little bit about it, but what are some of the other uses for it? I mean, I think news for a lot of people it's a big one. We talked about celebrity interactions, connecting with friends, family, that sort of thing. I think one thing that we see a lot of lately is like outrage campaigns. So when somebody, whether like the Me Too movement, hashtag Me Too, that all happened on Twitter, or when people
Black Lives Matter.
People got mad about the design of the Sonic CGI in the movie, and they got upset, and the movie company changed Sonic. So it's like a lot of that stuff, right, is happening on there. Which I think Black Lives Matter, Me Too, that probably falls a little more towards activism than outrage. But I think sometimes those lines get blurred.
It does seem like when something happens, people take to Twitter versus something else.
Yeah, even like weather or like any like when mass shootings happen or other like catastrophes, you can go to Twitter and you can just see like a real time set of events. Of
So
like
maybe
how
in that
things
way,
rolled out.
it's a good way to get information quickly in real time. I guess you have
Sometimes.
to kind of.
I think a few of the ways that
Filter.
Twitter changed things was, one, they were the first hashtag. You
Yeah.
know, they're there, or at least maybe other people's tried it before, but hashtag was kind of that first, subject. And so I remember so many people chasing, what is a hashtag? And you're able to kind of follow a subject by the hashtag. And then obviously, almost every other social media platform adopted that idea of a hashtag. But from my knowledge, or at least where I discovered, hashtags, it seemed like Twitter was the first one to do it. And I think that forced, and other social medias had done it, but that platform forced maximum, amount of space. For Twitter, it was 140 characters. And so one of the things I think it forced people to do was to be more concise. Like I felt like I could follow, something pretty concisely and become a better communicator in some ways, because it's easier to communicate, in mass and not really put all your thoughts together. And so I remember like just creatively like having thoughts and, seeing the minus however many characters as you're tweeting something, and you're like, I've got to reword think more about how I'm saying this in the most concise way. And so
Yes,
for me,
good
like
point.
as a pastor or preacher, like that's one of those things that like Twitter probably helped me refine that skill a little bit more.
Smush it down.
Yeah.
And
Which is a discipline. It's a discipline to like actually shorten
truly.
things. So
yeah, and then they doubled it to 280 characters, and then they have it where now you can add multiple replies to your first tweet and send them all at once. So some of that has kind of felt like it's gone away, but brevity is not quite as synonymous with Twitter anymore.
and corporations, obviously, and I think you guys have many of people that follow me on Twitter may know that I use it as one of those outlines for talking to
That's true.
Businesses,
business,
and-
because
yeah,
it seems to be one of those places that you can actually
get a response.
get a response, to
Yeah.
whether it's like a package from UPS or whatever it might be. It's one of those places that it seems like it's not always driven by a bot, and a lot of times you tweet at a company or whatever, and then they will, DM you a little bit to find out like more solutions. Now that DMs have become a bigger thing, but it seems like one of those places that it's like, if I actually want to get something done, I could call and listen to classical music for like a couple hours and hope that they send me to the right spot, or
But
I
no,
could.
Alex has another
Well,
solution.
because you can kind of break that up. You can wait for a reply, and usually it's not instant, like maybe like a call, but you can do it throughout like the course of meetings or a day. So that's obviously one of those ways that I've used.
And then also, I
Twitter.
guess, depending on your hashtag, then more than just your friends would see it.
Yeah,
So then it can.
which the hashtag is interesting because I feel like
gain
it's
more.
dead. Like people who
think so?
use hashtags are like
Lame?
it's like looked at like boomer activity
Oh,
now.
shoot.
Like
I use
when you
lots of hashtags on. Things.
it's just like it seems like that's kind of the vibe I get
Oh.
because the search has gotten so good that you
Yeah.
don't need to use a hashtag to find the themes or topics. So like when you look at trending on Twitter, it's rare to see a hashtag trending anymore. But yeah, I don't know. It's almost like as Facebook and Instagram tried to take over the hashtag, it kind of died on Twitter. But I feel like the debate is still out whether they're useful or
And
not.
I'm curious with Elon Musk buying Twitter, it kind of makes me unsure. I feel like it's really in the media. So I'm like, what's going to come back? Like, what's going to be relevant? What is all of this that's been happening over the past week? Because it's getting a lot of attention. It's like, is that I'm like, is that a media ploy? Like, I haven't really
Yeah.
kind of.
Well,
back and
you
forth.
brought it up, so I'm going to go through a timeline of that
would be
a little
helpful.
bit. Elon Musk did purchase Twitter, but it was quite the drama that happened. Let's see. I'm referencing an Axios article that has a timeline, so I'm going to just kind of follow this timeline. It says the big picture. The visit is the latest development in Musk's attempt to buy social media company for an estimated $44 billion. Here's a timeline of that. March 26, Musk contacts Jack Dorsey, who was Twitter's founder, former chief executive officer, and one of Twitter's directors at that time, about purchasing it. March 27th, Musk tells Twitter executives he is considering various options, including potentially joining the Twitter board, seeking to take Twitter private, or starting a competitor to Twitter. April 4th, Musk announces that he has bought a 9.2% stake in Twitter. So it says that's the equivalent of 73 million shares of Twitter common stock at the time, and worth was about $2.89 billion. April 5th, Twitter submits a filing before the SEC that makes Musk a director until 2024. April 11th, Twitter CEO tweets that Musk would not be joining the board. April 11th, Musk offers to buy Twitter, saying he would pay $54.20 a share in cash, so about $43 billion. April 5th, Twitter enacts a defensive measure called a poison pill on corporate terms that would stop him from purchasing it. April 21st, federal securities filing. Musk says that he didn't have any equity partners for his Twitter takeover bid. This is a lot of drama. April 25th, Twitter agrees to be acquired by Musk for $44 billion. May 10th, Musk says he would reverse Twitter's current permanent ban of President Trump. May 14th, Musk tweets that his $44 billion deal to buy Twitter is temporarily on hold. May 16th, in a thread, he engages with the CEO and says that because the CEO had tweeted that they found that less than 5% of its users were spam or fake accounts, and Musk responds with a poop emoji. In other words, to say he doesn't agree. He thinks that there are more bots out there. And then that leads to him believing that Twitter isn't as valuable as he originally said. Then Musk on May 17th says his bid to buy Twitter cannot move forward because of the fake accounts. May 17th, Twitter said it had planned to close the transaction merger. May 18th, Musk said he would vote for Republicans and can no longer support Democrats after previously saying Twitter must be politically neutral. I'm going to skip some of these because this just gets into a lot of like the more of the drama that happened on Twitter, because of ultimately it's this weird cat and mouse game where Twitter is being defensive and not wanting to be bought. And then Elon Musk kind of backs out and says, "Oh, he doesn't want to buy them." And then Twitter kind of goes, "Oh no, please buy us again."
It's like a good old Nicholas Sparks novel, you know.
Yeah.
They're playing hard to get a little bit, and he just keeps chasing them down. And
It's
finally,
exactly like that, Alex.
yeah, there's going to be a
exactly
movie about this one day.
So anyway, eventually Twitter sues when Musk says he's not going to buy them. They sue him. And then instead of like fighting it out, because Musk countersues, but then ultimately decides not to follow through on that. On September 13th, Twitter shareholders voted to approve Elon Musk's bid to buy the company for $44 billion. On October 4th, Musk proposed in a letter to close the deal. And then on October 22nd, Musk walked into the Twitter HQ carrying a bathroom sink. Yes, a sink. As he was expected to meet with the employees and close the deal, and he proceeded to fire many of the top executives.
There you have it.
There's the whole timeline. What is the significance of the sink, you think? Anybody?
Oh, yeah. No,
Like, it's not the kitchen sink. It's just a bathroom sink. So I guess let that sink in. I don't know.
I think that's what it was.
Was that it?
I think isn't that what his tweet said?
Maybe that's what it was.
Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Like that
let him in.
Yeah, the sink is in.
Yeah,
So
let it. Yeah.
I'm
It's a
pretty
weird,
sure that's
very weird pun.
what it was. And so
So if you were not familiar with that, that was kind of the timeline of it. aside from what you think of
let
Elon,
that sink in. Yeah.
what you think of Elon Musk, I am just kind of excited about Twitter for the first time in a long time. Not just because it's him or whatever. It's just that I feel like when these things happen, there is room and potential for kind of big sweeping changes that we haven't seen. Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, but it is going to be kind of interesting.
And we're going to get to see all of it unfold.
Where it goes. So what do you think this means for the future of Twitter? Is this good? Is this bad? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's probably a good thing. Sorry, Jess, to cut you off, but I think Twitter, for me, what I've seen so far and some of the things that he's hoping to do, it seems like it's going to be bringing positive to Twitter, and all social platforms, I think, are in this place of trying to figure out like how much responsibility they have to society. I mean, way more than I think any creator of these platforms in the beginning, these original platforms, ever realized that they would change society. I don't think Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg or Tom with MySpace, if you remember that one, I don't think they ever really intended to be these places where, and I could be wrong, where, political battles were raging, where activism was like the hot thing, where like I don't think they could have imagined that this would sell for $44 billion. And so I think there's people that realize they have a responsibility more and more to, mental health, to society, and all of those kinds of things. And so I think Elon is one of those people that he's kind of a wild card, but he's done, I think, a lot of things overall for society to help bring it to, more positive spaces, and done it in creative ways, and surrounded himself with, I think he's not just a brainchild. He surrounded himself with, I think, other brilliant people, and that have helped, I think, hopefully move society in a positive direction. And so just I'm not at all an apologist on Elon Musk, but I think from what I've seen from my seat, my understanding of him, I think he's got a good track record that he'll bring some good innovation and thoughts to it.
Interesting. I think it's interesting.
That was like an interesting, that was
I like it really makes me kind of process, because I think, like, Eric, you reading that timeline, I feel like I went on a little roller coaster ride. So I don't feel like this has been like a cut and dry, like pretty, like was there like integrity all the way through with it. We kind of have like had this debate. I think that's one of the reasons why we are talking about it, because he's like unbanning people that have been banned, just different stuff that he's doing. So it's like there is life being breathed back into Twitter. Yeah. And I'm sitting here like I'm going to be the skeptic today a little bit and just say, is it going to be positive or negative? Because I do think that there is an agenda when we spend $44 billion for something. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what are you trying to do? Yeah. Because I think a lot of people in positions of power, like, I just wonder, like, what's the accountability? He kind of like can do whatever he wants. Who has $44 billion? Not very many people.
Not Kanye anymore.
Right? Okay. But Kanye can tweet. Yeah. Now, so it's just,
well, and I do think, like, not to come to his defense, but there is like a part of it that's just personal, because I think he has tweeted in critique.
Are we talking about
Elon Musk? Okay. He's tweeted in critique of Twitter several times because he is really passionate about the platform. So I think there's part of that. But then you see, I think you shared this article, Jess, from Insider, that says Twitter staff have been told to work 84-hour weeks, and managers slept at their office over the weekend as they scrambled to meet Elon Musk's tight deadlines. So what type of a work culture is he implementing? And is that good or bad? I mean, that sounds bad to do that to people. And
I think more in that article was like, show me how hard you're willing to work, or else. And it's kind of like, prove yourself. So
which he's pretty notorious for, just like, if you're like, I've heard that if you're doing your job, he just kind of leaves you alone. But if if Elon Musk starts micromanaging you, that probably means you're
There's something
on your way out because, so it's just, it is interesting. He's probably testing the waters to see what people are made out of, which is, I don't know, that feels like kind of an old school way of doing that.
Yeah. And think about it. I mean, Twitter is a way, I mean, it's words and opinions of other people. It's information being passed back and forth. And so there's a high value on being able to share what you're thinking and thoughts and feelings and to communicate with other people. I mean, if it boils down to it, isn't it that? And so there's this high value on sharing what you're really feeling without, does it come down to free speech of like, is there going to be regulations? I don't know.
Well, and some of the other changes that could be coming, he's mentioned having an $8 a month blue check verification. So we could all get verified if we wanted to for $8 a month. Then we'd have our little blue check, but I think
what's the point of that? You just
a
get
profit
more,
making money.
No, for you. Like if you were going to spend $8 a month, is it like you're more legit?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, obviously celebrities and companies and things like that, they've got authorized to help people not confuse them with spam accounts and things like that. But I mean, it sounds like those people will have to pay to maintain that in the future if his plan goes through. The other thing is he wants to lift all of the lifetime bans that were put on Twitter, which, I mean, I know there's the Donald Trump thing, but there's also there's people who just have said horrendous things. If you get a lifetime ban on Twitter, you probably said something pretty bad. So the idea of just kind of opening the floodgates back to people. The edit button is something that Twitter has supposedly been working on for a very long time. They still haven't really implemented. So maybe he'll usher that in. He's been quoted on a podcast talking about how he wants to make it more like WeChat, which is an app that's really popular in China, which that app, they kind of do everything there, whether it's financial transactions between people. It's kind of like Facebook, Skype, PayPal, like all of that.
And that's one of the only social media platforms that people in China are allowed to have.
Yeah. So he's talked about making it more like that. Whatever that might look like. It's just interesting because it's all over the board. There's a lot of things that could change. Jess, you mentioned just a moment ago free speech, and I think that kind of brings us to our next big point where when it comes to Twitter, that's the argument we hear a lot. And that's that, it should be a place for free speech. It seems like that's something that Elon Musk is very passionate about. But I also feel like free speech is one of those topics that we get wrong sometimes as a society and what that means. And what do you think this is a good thing for Twitter?
I mean, to me, that the idea of free speech is, it's a complicated, kind of topic because I think sometimes we were like, it's just I have the right to say whatever I want to whoever I want, and no one can say anything back. And it's there's those old adages like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me, kind of things. And we pride ourselves, I think, as Americans with the freedom of speech because it's part of our founding documents is that we have that right to it. And so people don't want a platform that they're able to enact their free speech on to be telling them what or steering their speech or, cutting off their speech or whatever. But then at the same time, it's like I think there's a difference between like me walking up to you, Eric, and saying whatever I might want to say and spreading, a lie about Jess or what I could do all those kinds of things, spread misinformation, do any of that. Like I have the right to exercise my voice in that way, but then there becomes a different kind of responsibility when things are platformed, I think, and algorithms get involved and companies get involved and economy gets behind it, that as broken people, we just start to see like, hey, there's maybe some less freedom to the speech that we think is there, that actually there's more direction and steering and money that goes into what is seen, what isn't seen. We've talked about, echo chambers that happen on social media platforms because ultimately, I don't think that's what they were created to do was make money, but ultimately they're eco machines, making so much money. And so one of the things they they can do is make more money, and to make more money, you're oftentimes feeding things to people that are going to keep them on your platform and, keep eyes on there. There's a whole economy of our attention that's out there. And so I think that's where it gets muddied with like, oh, anybody should be able to say whatever they want, wherever they want, however they want. Yet these are private, health companies that are having to think through the moral implications of, is this actually wise to do? What damages could happen
and
there?
I think when you're talking about free speech and it comes to misinformation or things like that, that people are like, oh, it's free speech. I can say whatever I want. And it goes to the old adage of you can't yell fire in a movie theater or whatever if there's no fire, because people are going to get hurt. And I think we saw that with misinformation around the pandemic and the elections and a lot of things like that, where people could say whatever they wanted and there was no consequence to it.
And I think no filter.
Yeah, right.
And no accountability, because I'm thinking, okay, I could even we have a platform right here. I could say whatever I wanted, right? I mean, you could edit me out, but right now I could say whatever I want. And so, but we need to continue. I think it's just a good reminder to what filter are we using our free speech through? I mean, I think that God gives us a voice and opinions and convictions and thoughts and feelings, but it's like, what is that being filtered through? Because that ultimately determines how we communicate.
Yeah, one of I looked it up just because I was like, well, let's see, what does the actual First Amendment protect? And it's like, if you look at what freedom of speech includes, it says not to speak, which specifically means you have the freedom to not like salute the flag or things like that. Of students to wear black armbands to school protests, to protest the war. These are from certain court cases too, so I'm not going to go into all the details. You can look that up. To use certain offensive words and phrases to convey political messages, to contribute money to political campaigns, to advertise commercial products and professional services with some restrictions, to engage in symbolic speech. So that would be like burning a flag in a protest or things like that. Here's some things that the freedom of speech do not include. That's to incite lawless actions, to make or distribute obscene materials, to burn draft cards as an anti-war protest, to permit students to print articles in a school newspaper over the objections of school administration, which that's interesting. I didn't know that. Of students to make an obscene speech at a school-sponsored event, or students to advocate illegal drug use at a school-sponsored event. So all of those amendments are kind of because of different
happened,
cases in the past. But I mean, freedom of speech isn't endless, but it seems like so many times it just gets into this like very semantical argument that happens when people start talking about freedom of speech. And it's like, well, I can say whatever I want and I should be able to, because
you can't stop me. I have that right. And I think with rights come great responsibility for us. I mean, as Americans, but also as Christians, like the freedom that we're given comes great responsibility for us to use it, with wisdom and, certain things like that. Like, should anybody be able to come up to my daughter and just start making fun of them because they have the ability to, and the right to say whatever they want? No. Like, I just don't think
or have
things
an
that are
opinion
hurtful.
about choices you've made for your family or your
correct.
daughter. Yeah.
And so it's one of those two-way streets that we often, it's one of those things we're a big fan of when it is
suits us.
when it's suiting us, but then when it's damaging us and we're seeing that the cons of it, then we're like, oh yeah, but it's not, or you don't have the right in that kind of case, or whatever it might look like. And that's why we haven't handled it well, which I think is why there's so much litigation and things like that around. And that's a part of the human nature, is like when you have freedom, but you have flawed, messy people in there and we don't always handle it the best, then we have to start, making these weird, crazy rules, because something happened. It's like you work at a company and you see like, hey, this is a rule that's on the books, and it's usually on there because something crazy happened. They
Yeah.
had to tell you it was hot on the McDonald's coffee cup
Yeah.
because somebody burned themselves and sued them.
Well, and
you
it's
know?
freedom. It's freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequence. And
sure.
I think that's the way sometimes people view it: is I can say what I want without any consequence coming back.
And it just goes, we've talked about this before, that term Schadenfreude, where it's like we like to see kind of people unraveling. And this kind of gives us a front row seat to
yeah,
people's unedited demise. So it's also kind of a captivating thing where it's like we want to see it. That I feel like Twitter is a platform for that.
yeah.
Good
for
and
sure.
bad. So
Is there, Alex, from a pastoral standpoint, is there any biblical context for freedom of speech that we could take from? I mean, I know there's a scripture in Ephesians 4:29 that some people would point to. It says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen," which I think people use that a lot of times in kind of a, we should be conscious of what we're saying and not just say anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's Proverbs, there's a lot of great wisdom kind of literature that would tell us things, like a person without discipline, a person that lacks discipline is like a city whose walls have been torn down, which means a person with that lacks discipline is like a city that's just able for someone to just come in here and destroy it, and their life will be destroyed because they lack any kind of self-discipline. I think Jesus talks about in the Sermon on the Mount that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And I've used it in other ways, like pithy ways, like out of the abundance of the mouth, the heart tweets, and so
I prefer, we had a poster up for a while
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
church
we
that
did.
said, "Tweet unto others as you want to be tweeted."
And so
Yeah.
it is that thought of out of the abundance of our hearts, the things that are happening in there, that's, what will flow out of it. And I think the checks and balances is like, okay, is that thought, is my heart in a healthy place that I should be sharing these kinds of thoughts? Is that whatever is lovely, whatever is good, whatever is pure, whatever is righteous, whatever is holy? In Philippians, it talks about that. Think about these things. And so it forces us to, man, if I'm only vilest coming out of me, then that must be what's coming in. Like I can't come take something out of my refrigerator that's never actually been put inside of my refrigerator. And so a lot of times we're like, oh, I want to have the fruit of the Spirit, joy, happiness, all these kinds of happiness, not a fruit of the Spirit, but joy and self-control and all of these kinds of things. But if I'm not actually placing that into my heart and dwelling on that and in Scripture, then good luck. So,
good
Well,
word.
as we wrap things up here, I mean, this isn't just an endorsement of Twitter, but hey, if you're on there, you're on there, and if you're not, this conversation might have been kind of meaningless to you. But as we wrap things up, any Twitter follows that you would recommend? Any accounts that are just gems that you enjoy? Maybe someone's thinking, this whole Elon Musk thing has been curious. I might check out Twitter for a little bit.
Can I say,
Yeah.
like you said like it could be meaningless to you, but that's a loss for somebody that's listening to this
Yeah.
to not choose to reflect or get something out of it, or also to engage or to be aware of things that are happening in our culture and affecting our culture. So I would say if the answer to what you said is, I didn't get anything out of it, like do better, like be better, like we can push ourselves to kind of look more of like how we can reflect on this.
well, and it's not really about Twitter.
Yeah.
It's about
It's a bigger,
the ripple effects of free speech and how are those things. And that's why most people probably know about this. It's not really about a platform, but it's what the platform allows people to do, or how the platform actually affects real people in real time, how it affects politics, how it affects, especially with an election, coming up in a few weeks, and then, presidential election in a couple of years. This idea of free speech and how technology impacts our lives, this is just at the crosshairs of that right now. And so what happens here, I think, is going to be a microcosm of how does our society continue to react in coming years, and what's legislation look like, and so some of those things need to happen. But
Yeah, that's
as far
true.
as Twitter followers, that's a good question. A few of my favorites, and there'll probably be more Christian are I love Beth Moore, following her. I'm not a big like Beth, like I don't go to watch her Bible studies or anything, but she's one of those people that I like her because she interacts with like followers or people, or she'll say like kind of funny things every so often on there. So she's just kind of a fun person to follow on there. There's a plethora of people that I follow that really challenge me. So I follow them not because I agree with everything they say, but I want to hear like, what are people saying? And you know, what are people, especially during like the racial tensions. There's a guy named Sean King that I followed on there. And again, like it's not an endorsement, but I need to know the things that people are saying and talking about outside of my little bubble, which is one of the things I love about Twitter is I can kind of not have to read someone's entire book, but I can kind of understand where they're coming from and follow the links that they are, you know, putting out there and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely one of those people that I follow. Scott Sauls is another favorite person that I follow. He's a pastor, and I've just read a few of his books that have been super influential. And Bob Goff.
Oh, of course.
Your buddy.
I love
your buddy.
Bob
We
Goff,
know.
following him. I mean, just for encouragement and, you know, just reminders. He tweets a lot of things like from his books. And so there's reminders of, oh, yeah, that was good. And I love how he phrases things like that. So those are a few like the ones that pop in my head right away. Alex Ely.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I feel like I use Twitter a little differently than you, Alex. So maybe like more recreationally, I follow like all my reality TV people that I like. Santa Claus, there's a Christmas countdown.
Oh,
if you want to
good.
look that up, Hallmark channel. Tells you the latest Hallmark movies that are going to be on. And of course, I follow all the Creighton teams.
You got to do that.
Yeah, I got
And
to
at
do that.
CCC Omaha, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I
for
think
sure.
the Uncomfortable podcast I already have retweeted on here too.
Yeah. There
We
you
don't
go.
have
So-
a Twitter, though.
Well, not an official. It's just through the
Okay, was it a
CCC
YouTube?
Omaha.
Yeah. So
Yeah, those are good.
you can use it all different ways.
Alex
little
took
fun.
my first one. Beth Moore is fun. Like she's probably one of my favorite like Christian personalities on Twitter, just because she does engage. Personal favorite, Conan O'Brien. He's always tweeting something random and hilarious. Wendy's is always just fun to watch them.
Wendy's.
Go at it with other brands.
Retweet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Another one that's kind of obscure and goofy is Progress Bar. So it's at Progress Bar 22 _. So they kind of give you updates every day of how far we are through the year, which is just really random. And this one is a fictional person who is on Twitter, and that's
Bo Pelini?
Ted Lasso.
Oh, dang it.
That's a great show on Apple TV Plus. If you're interested in watching that, it's wholesome, a very wholesome show, wholesome Twitter account with a lot of fun tweets out there.
Love it.
Twitter is an endless wealth of
It's
everything.
a little smorgasbord of anything
Probably
you want.
terrible things, but also some good stuff is out there too. So that pretty much does it for this episode. Tweet us if you have any responses to that this week, and then we'll know you listened to this episode. You can tweet us at CCC Omaha. Or if you want to reach out to the podcast, you can do that on our Instagram at CCCOMA podcast. You can send us an email to podcast@cccomaha.org.
Voicemail.
You can leave us a voicemail. That's right. We have a phone number out there. We said that earlier, right? I don't remember.
402-885-9930.
Yes.
Keep the voicemail number there. You remembered it.
Call or
go.
text.
But that does it for today. Until next time, we'll talk to you then.